Rukus Avenue Radio.
Namaste and hello, Rukus Avenue Radio listeners. This is Priyadarshini, your Rukus Avenue Radio correspondent. We are so honored and blessed to be with Majesty, Shri S.S. Rajamouli Ji. Namaste and welcome to the show, Rajamouli Ji.
Namaskar.
So how does it feel? Last night we were at the Chinese theaters in Los Angeles on Hollywood Boulevard for the screening of Triple R, which got a standing ovation and a roaring response. How does it feel?
Incredible. I expect that kind of response from Indians or in India, but getting that here in US from Americans is really makes me very, very happy and thrilled. Being the filmmaker, it's great.
I think especially it's prudent after the pandemic lockdowns when we are back in the theater experience, gauging that theatrical experience with the audience and the reactions for all the emotional intensity scenes. So it must have felt wonderful. Congratulations once again.
Yes.
And going on out, in Triple R there are many Ramayana references, and I read that in your formative storytelling years, it originated from your grandmother telling you stories of the Hindu epics Mahabharata and Ramayana. So can you tell us how that influenced your filmmaking?
Not just my grandmother telling the stories. I was introduced to Amar Chitrakatha by my father in a very early young age, and my mother made sure that I was not idling my time. That my mother would always say, "Why are you sitting idle? Go read a storybook, or go read a comic book, or go out and play." So that was a big influence on me. And as I was growing up, Ramayana and Mahabharata, Bhagavata, and Indian stories of history, folklore, had many versions. They start from kids' versions to young adult versions to much more senior philosophical versions. There are many versions. So I went through all of them as I grew up. So they're drilled into my mind. The emotions, the characterizations, the largeness of the scale, the groundedness of the relations between the characters. They always are with me. They stay with me.
I can tell because your production company is also called Vishwamitra Creations, and it's inspired by the great Indian sage Vishwamitra. So do you also want to speak about what inspired you to keep that namesake?
Basically, Vishwamitra is the sage, is a powerful sage who created an alternate universe. You can say an alternative world. So in films, that's what we do. We create alternative worlds which are not real, which are not there, but we create those worlds. So I thought it was
an apt name. All right, so I'd like to ask you, you also spoke about your Amar Chitrakatha influences, reading comic books as a child. I think a lot of people in Hollywood, we see that resurgence through all the heroic films that we're seeing and reinvigorating our childhood. So what kind of heroism from those comic books inspired you to amalgamate that with Hindu history and to create larger-than-life cinema?
So one basic difference between Amar Chitrakatha and other comic books are most of the comic books are created characters, a superhero character or something. But Amar Chitrakatha took all the stories from Indian epics, Indian folklore, Indian history, and told those stories. That's the main difference. So when I was talking about getting inspired, it is the Indianness of the stories. It is the
connecting to our roots.
Connecting to our roots and how as Indians we interact with each other, how the relations are,
and how they change over time as well.
Everything changes, every culture changes, but I think the basic culture would never change.
Right.
In India, one thing that I'm proud of is like, even though India was subjected to many invasions for thousands of years, the basic culture of the country, that itself being very diversified, many languages, many cultures, many religions, but still the basicness of the culture being uncorrupted, just being there, I feel very proud as an Indian.
I feel equally proud being an Indian American and being raised. Just a little background about myself. My family is from New Delhi, but we're Bengali. So being raised in America, my parents forced us, when we come at home, English was not allowed. So my brother and I would say, oh, you know, we're so hungry. Mummy would say to my dad in Bengali or in Hindi, "Aapne kuch suna hai? Mere jo sune cho," you know? And they would make sure that forced us to learn our roots so that we're not alienated from who we are, and always respecting where we come from so that we can go ahead together. So my next question is that you began your directing journey as a writer, first and foremost. So how important is it for a director to write their own vision?
I didn't start as a writer, but I worked as an assistant to my father, who is a writer, and that went on for a period of 5 to 6 years, I guess. That was the basis of my dramatic language. That's how I learned. Writing is not just putting the pen to the paper, but creating those sequences. For me, that was very, very important. And I have some limitations as a writer. So I always take the help of my father, who is a writer. There are a few writers who worked on my other films too. I take their help as writers, but I co-write along with them. For me, it is very, very important, but it is not an absolutely necessary thing for the directors to have. But I think any director will have a part of the writer in him.
Of course.
It won't be possible just.
Right.
It can't be possible.
It's part and parcel of the creative cooperation, collaboration with the whole entire team. Equally, as an actor, everyone always says it's important to be an AD to become an actor or to go through film school. I'm going to be ADing for a Indian-Italian project upcoming this year, and everyone's like, that's the gateway into getting into acting, despite film school and all your formative education. So today, we're at the Aero Theater, where Madhura is screening. Would you say this film changed the trajectory of your career?
Magadhira, yes. I don't think it changed the trajectory, but it put me on a big platform where people thought this guy likes really, really big things. You know? Earlier I made big things, but Magadhira was really, really big at that point of time. So it put me on a platform, at least for the Telugu-speaking audiences in my Telugu states. It really put me there. But the career-changing films, I should say, is one is Simhadri, my second film. That was really a path changer. But the real path changer is Ega. Ega that really changed perspective of the audiences and the way I think about myself also. The kind of belief that I had in myself really grew with Ega.
As a filmmaker, you started believing your own creative instincts through Ega.
Yeah, I always believed, but that Ega reinstated that. It's a practical application of a thought.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. And I'd like to say, Rajamouli Ji, you were the catalyst, I would say, for the term pan-Indian cinema. And I put quotation marks around that. But what are your thoughts about that term? What is pan-Indian cinema to you?
I mean, you can put it in any which way, but basically, if you believe your story can travel across the borders, that's a belief. And if it is proven true, then it becomes a pan-Indian film. So it's just about believing your story can travel across the borders. That's pan-Indian film.
I agree. So I'm getting my PhD in strategic media, and we learn about the new terminology that always comes up in the filmmaking process. And pan-Indian cinema is one of those things. So people know that Telugu cinema is called Tollywood, but many people also don't know that the films that come out of West Bengal are also called Tollywood. So now we're in Hollywood, and in this day and age of Tollywood, Bollywood, Hollywood, when it comes to the West, do you think it's more prudent to have it called the Indian film fraternity or the Indian film industry, regardless of what language comes out of India?
Those are terms. Personally, I don't like the terms Bollywood, Hollywood, Collywood, Tollywood.
Any of the woods.
I really hate those terms. I try not to use those terms. It is Telugu film industry, Hindi film industry, Malayalam film industry, Bengali film industry. it is a nice name for it.
Right.
Those woods I really don't like. Here it makes sense because there is a place called Hollywood, and that's where the whole the studios and the whole films are made. That's the reason they have Hollywood. There is no reason to have those woods in India. But that's my personal this thing. For a long time, people thought Indian films are outside of India. People thought Indian films are films, but now we are growing, and now Telugu film industry is in the present season is the biggest in the country. So happy about it, really happy about it, and I don't know. All of us essentially make Indian films. If people outside of India can term them as Indian films, it is great. But I think they can see film lovers can see a distinct difference between each film language, not the language spoken by the actors, but the film language. I think people will see the difference.
I mean, growing up here, I think a lot of the American people don't even know how diverse India is when it comes to languages and cultures and the small intricacies that don't obviously delineate us, but also conjoin us together as the Indian subcontinent, as we were called before. So your next project with Mahesh Babu is described as a James Bond meets Indiana Jones on an African expedition. So tell us, Rukus Ave radio listeners, what they can expect from that movie and everywhere else.
I mean, at present, I can't talk about the movie itself, but like you said, it's a big action adventure. That will be my biggest film yet. So yeah, I guess people will have a lot of fun.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Rajamouli Ji.
Hi, this is Rajamouli. You are watching Rukus Avenue Radio.
Rukus Avenue Radio.